Hello everybody, welcome from Ealing in West London. I can see that you've all started to introduce yourself, so thank you very much for that. And we'll get started. So the agenda that we wanted today is just kind of a quick check-in really, a bit of an Ofqual update, have a think about some resources, have a think about fieldwork and some CBT, but essentially we do want to give you some time to think about what Pearson can do to support you and what we can do to help you in this really kind of challenging time at the moment. So just kind of, you have started to introduce yourself, but just kind of to get to know each other a little bit, kind of who are you, kind of what are you doing, what has been your biggest challenge. One of my biggest challenges was sourcing self-raising flour for my son's birthday. So we've had a lockdown birthday in the Fowl household, and I couldn't source baking powder either. So our saviour has been a delivery from Covent Garden Market, and they brought us a fruit delivery and also some flour so that we could have a birthday cake. Some of your greatest worries, obviously I may not be able to address all of those concerns at the moment, but hopefully we can kind of give you some assurances. And what type of biscuit have you chosen for this meeting? I have had a chocolate chip digestive, and it was really disappointed because my milk chocolate ones didn't come. So yeah, students having access to computers. You're glad you're still alive, yeah? It's a winner. My children have been told that they have to be very quiet. I had just have to go up about 5 minutes ago and tell them not to do gymnastics. But just to give you that update. So obviously these are just the most recent Ofqual updates from yesterday. So we can move forward with that. But obviously I think everybody is quite au fait with this. I think everybody kind of knows what they're doing, that they do have to give that assessment grade. You do have to rank it. But just to be clear, there is no requirement to send off your fieldwork statement for summer 2020. Okay, that has come from Ofqual. You don't have to fill in your fieldwork statement. Okay, so please don't kind of worry if your exams officer hasn't got that message or anything like that. You can let them know that you don't have to do that. Most of you have probably already started this. I know my colleagues that I know in schools have already started to do this ranking, and you're looking at things like mock exams, their classwork, their book work, exam questions that they've done for you, previous results in your centre, the performance of this year's students, and any other relevant information. Okay, so this has kind of come from Ofqual. I'm going to say something now because I can see already that a lot of you are concerned about Year 10 and Year 12. The most recent Ofqual update have said that they're going to develop approach to future exam series over the coming months. Okay, so we don't have any definitive answers. They want to ensure that students are not unfairly disadvantaged, and I know that in geography you are, I can see Kirsten there, you are concerned about fieldwork for Year 10 and probably for Year 12 as well, and the NEA. At the moment, we don't have any answers. Okay, any decisions would have to be made with all awarding bodies working together and with Ofqual. Okay, so unfortunately, I don't have any answers for you today. As soon as we do get any information, then of course we will let you know. But obviously, as things stand, that the specification requirements are as they would always be. So we've got some resource recommendations, and I'm going to be ably helped by Rebecca Butler, who some of you will know if you're in her Facebook group that she looks at. So I'm going to do a little introduction, and then Rebecca is going to come in with some of the resources that she's used with her students, or resources that she's kind of seen. So resources easy wins. If you've got any resources that you think everybody on this call should know about, please do put them in the chat box. There will be opportunities to do it later, but do, if you get the chance, share your knowledge. This is what it's about. We're all in this together, and we do want to work together. So there is a Tutor to You weekly quiz that is often done by Kate Stockings, but other people have been done it to give her a week off. And that's just something you can send out to students. You can do it yourself as well. And that usually comes out on a Sunday night. Time for Geography is some inspiring open access geography educational videos. And I'm sure lots of you have seen these, but they are supported by lots of universities and things like that, and it's quite short clips, really quite accessible. You can just browse through those clips and have a look at them. And also, if you didn't know, the Financial Times is free to schools. So you get one subscription for the whole school, so you may need to talk to your librarian or find out if you've already subscribed and get that log on, but they can all get access to that. So obviously you can see that last week's was coronavirus and a bitter harvest for the UK. Today's is about deprived areas hit hardest in the UK by the pandemic, and every week there's usually an article like this, and there's some questions to go with it that you can share with your students and get them to do. So based on these resources, I'm actually going to hand over to Rebecca now. So I'm going to mute and I'm going to hand you over to Rebecca Butler.
Good evening, everybody. I've met some of you before, but it's nice to meet lots of more new people. We've been using Google Classroom at our school, and one way we've started this is by using Google Forms to create quizzes. We found this really easy, so I teach Spec A, so you'll see here this is a resource management topic. Each week they get a little quiz based on some retrieval practice of things they didn't know before from previous topics, and then also on things that we've just done. Really easy to create. You can keep using them time and time again, and you can identify gaps. If in your school, like in my school, there is some issues that people are struggling to keep up with things because they've got family and stuff to look after, these are really good for reducing staff workload because they self-mark and they go through things quite easily. If you want questions on how to do one of these, just either follow me on Twitter or ask me in the Facebook group, and I can send you some quite easy instructions of how to do this. Similarly, Kate Stockings, if you look on her Twitter feed, she's been using an app called Show My Homework Quiz. Different schools are using different app functions, but this is just another one. She's using the free BBC bite-size activities and then setting quizzes on them. I know in some schools you might not be doing the same topics as the bite-size, but actually you might use them for retrieval practice of things that you might have done earlier in the year. We've also been doing some work, obviously, on resource management as the topic we were teaching, and I set last week some retrieval practice with students where they had to go away, they had to condense the Take 3 sheet into something different. So I gave them some range of choices: flashcards, mind maps, reducing transform sheets, self-testing quizzes. They had to upload the evidence, so I didn't mark it, I just wanted to see that they'd done it. And then I set a Google Classroom quiz on what had they learnt from doing the revision activity. I know retrieval practice is hard when we're trying to teach remotely, but this just gives you a bit of variety. Now, there's lots of these already available, these Take 3 things on Twitter. I've done some for Spec A. If you follow Miss Jog92, she's done some for Spec B. Also, there is some for other specifications if you know people who teach other ones. You might have to tweak them for your case studies that you teach, but the templates are there for you to use. Another thing we've been trying to do is keep encouraging students to learn their vocabulary. We know vocabulary is really important, especially that Tier 3 vocabulary. I got last week my students to make some flashcards and then again just upload one picture to show me on Google Classroom. I've been using some dual coding things, and if you want to know about vocab and dual coding, if you look on my Twitter feed, there's some ideas there on how you link dual coding to vocab. Lots of the vocab though is similar for Spec A and Spec B, so you can just use my sheets and use them. Once I'd done the flashcards, I then did a quick Google quiz on how to test that language, just to see how people are building up that over time, to try and build both of these things. And then the last thing we've been doing is, for some students, we've been doing practice exam questions. And just like in the classroom, really common mistake. So if you see the one on the board, on the screen, sorry, it's an explain one way question with 4 marks. We know over time that students give one key point and one explanation and don't go into enough depth. So we've been doing little Loom videos. So we set the student the question, we then mark them on Google Classroom where they self-assess them. And then we've been doing little Loom clips just to go through them. Literally took me about 5 or 10 minutes to do one, just based on some of the things that I've marked for students. Our feedback from students were they quite liked this because it was really interactive and it felt like a bit of a lesson. But they're just some of our ideas that we've been trying. I'm happy to pinch some of the things that you're doing as well, because it'd be nice to see what other schools are doing. And I think it's now back over to Victoria.
Yeah, and just to kind of add to this, so obviously Rebecca is doing the Loom feedback, and obviously you might use this as kind of some whole class feedback. You might maybe do some modelling, use either our examiner's report, or we've actually produced exemplar packs as well. So if your students have already seen what's in the examiner's report, do have a look at their exemplar packs. They are locked so the students can't see them. But also it means that you could put them up, you could give them some generic feedback. It might be that you give them some general feedback, but just to let you know that there are the examiner feedback videos. They are based on papers rather than individual questions, but the link is there for GCSE and GCSE B if you want to have a look at those examiner feedback videos, whether you have a look at them yourselves or whether you do decide that you want to share them with students. Just a reminder that normally the 2019 exams would become available on the 30th of March. We've actually kept them under the silver padlock for the foreseeable future until obviously we know what is happening with the autumn series, when the government decides when that will happen. So I don't want to say that they will be locked until kind of going forward, but just to let you know, they are padlocked at the moment, so students can't see the 2019 papers at the moment. This was just some wider reading that we came across. One of my things by the end of lockdown that I want to do is to read all of the books on this geography reading list. I think I'm about 6 at the moment, so I've still got a few more to go. But also to let you know about these geographical models that Becky Quigley has put together. So there's this one which is about the Burgess model. She's got quite a few on development models, the Bradshaw model, the demographic transition model, and also Parkes disaster response curve. So they're done as posters. She uses them in her classroom to put on her classroom wall and things like that. But there's also PowerPoints and things like that, and she's very generously made them downloadable, so you can access that. Extracurricular and wider reading, those of you are tutors, so Rebecca, please do kind of step in at any point. Rebecca put this together because she is a tutor. But from Miss Jog 92, this is very much about kind of, if you're a tutor, how are you supporting your students' well-being? So there's things like the tutor wellbeing bingo, there's the riddle of the week, and from Jen, the things like the country of the week, and students have got to go and find things out. There's some trivia, there's some things that they might want to read this week, and also kind of what they might want to listen to. So sometimes it's a podcast and different things like that that your students might find useful. Perhaps particularly for your younger students, maybe that's something that's a bit more accessible. Jogger Box. I love this. This comes out every Sunday evening on Twitter, and it just is a way of getting your students to kind of engage with geography and maybe in a bit more interactive way. You don't have to mark it, which I think is really important at the moment. And just to add to this, I'm quite a big Paul Hollywood fan anyway, because I do like a cake and bread. But also something that I would maybe add to this would be the Paul Hollywood Eats Japan. just in terms of kind of something a little bit different now that Race Across the World has finished. Top Twitter handles. Please do put your top Twitter handles below. You will get a copy of this chat afterwards, so any of those that you kind of think about would be really useful. And as we've said, Becky Quidley, she has done those posters. She's also done quite a lot for A-level, including globalisation and things like that. Bilbo Jog are one of our centres, so if you were there, hello, thank you very much for your updates. Any up-to-date news story or ideas or anything like that, Bilbo Jog will be tweeting. Kate Stockings has done some Seneca CBD recently. She's done a scheme of work based on some of those books in that reading list. Mr. Perez does all things teaching and learning. And for any of you that teach Year 13, he's actually contacted Russell Group universities to ask them what they want their Year 13 that are going to study geography in September, what they'd like those to do. So there's actually some tasks from universities that you can kind of give to your 13s that are going off to continue their geography studies. GeoTeach Rach has done an inspirational geographers display, and I appreciate that you won't be in school at the moment, but it was certainly something that I would certainly be looking at to put up in my classroom. And Mrs. Humanities does huge amounts of resources, but she orders a lot of support for teacher wellbeing. And I appreciate that this is a very difficult time for all of us, and we're sharing these resources, and we want to learn from each other. But obviously, do look after yourselves, look after your family. We're looking after students who are under a lot of pressure at the moment. So I do want you to just kind of look after yourselves as well. And she does quite a lot of support for teacher wellbeing. Mark Ensign, we know, Teach Like No One Is Watching and Make Every Geography Lesson Count. He also shares lots of other people's resources. And Michael Childs does lots on assessment and also links to a lot of other Twitter resources and things like that. Okay, so please do add any kind of Twitter handles that you find useful, and we will share them after the session. So fieldwork. I know this is what everybody is worried about at the moment. So these are just some resources that either you might look at yourselves or you might share with students just to support them, because we do find that some centres, it's the fieldwork paper that is their weakest paper. So if you go to our webpage, which is there, we've actually produced a guide to conducting high quality fieldwork at GCSE. Obviously we filmed this when we could actually leave, and it's filmed at Carding Mill Valley. So there's three sections to it. There's kind of a pre-field trip planning, what you might do before you go with students, what you might do when you're there, and how you're going to do your post-field work presentation and works like that. So there's three quite short videos. There is the booklet to go with it, and also obviously the GA conference was cancelled this year and it moved online, and Catherine Owen, who I believe I may have seen on the attendees list, did a great session for us on thinking critically about GCSE geography fieldwork, and the link to her PowerPoint presentation is there, and that was just some really good teaching and learning strategies on how to improve students' way of learning about fieldwork, and she did some great activities, so do have a look at that. Some of you have already mentioned the FSC Fieldwork Live. So it was done in conjunction with Encounter Edu, who are actually doing quite a lot on the Arctic. So they're doing some CPD sessions and things like that this week. From the 4th to the 15th of May, they're doing workshops and webinars on the Arctic. But the FSC Fieldwork Live, although the actual live lessons have finished, you can access the recordings, you can access all the materials that were with that. And there is one at Key Stage 4, it's about quality of life, and there is a coastal one, and at A level there is an investigating place and a hydrology and flooding one. Obviously at the moment we wouldn't be able to use this instead of real field work, but obviously we will keep you updated, okay? But at the moment we must stick to the specification in terms of field work. Okay, and this was just something that somebody put together, a route to geographical inquiry. These are called hexagonal linkages or visual hexagons, and I think lots of you use these in lots of different ways, but I thought this was a nice way of kind of getting students to think about that route to geographical inquiry. When we look at how students perform, it's usually that suitable question for geographical inquiry that is their weakest, along with the evaluation. That tends to be the questions that throw our students. So CPD, again, I've put this up, and if you have time to do this, I appreciate if you're out there teaching 5 hours of Zoom a day, of Zoom lessons, this is probably not going to be possible. So this is just, I don't want you to think there's an expectation that you have lots of time on your hands, because I know some of you, despite being at home, will probably have less time on your hands and kind of less headspace than you would normally, but these are out there if you want to use them, and lots of them are recorded so you can access them at a later date. So there's quite a lot from the GA conference. There is Seneca Learning, and one particular one was a great Key Stage 3 curriculum planning one. There's lots of Discover the World free CPD sessions, and the RGF have one tomorrow on climate change, but a lot of they've announced today that a lot of their paid for courses are now going to be free, so it's certainly worth having a look on their website. There was something from Adam Boxer on dual coding, and I've just put Michael Childs again at the bottom here because he's actually produced an overview of lots of the CPD which is out there. Okay, so if you wanted to have a look at that, that's a link to lots of different types of CPD that we thought you might find useful. And what next from us? So our lead examiners are putting together at the moment a resource pack for GCSE. It will be in the form of 4 booklets, and it will cover rivers, coasts, urban and rural, and they will all be of a similar format. So there will be some they will take the students through the inquiry process. There will be some questions, there'll be some answers, some mark schemes, so students can kind of see where they're at. And hopefully this will build up them in terms of the unfamiliar field work, as well as any field work that they do themselves. We're also going to put together a key terms document, and we hope to get this out to you as soon as possible. And this should cover the things such as words like topography, which are sometimes the word that we know they're in the spec, we do talk about them, we do teach students what they are, but sometimes when it comes to the exam they just forget it. So hopefully this would just be a way of giving them that key terms document. So I'm going to put it over to you now, because I'm sure you don't want to listen to me for too long on a Wednesday afternoon. So we're actually going to go out into some breakout rooms. So we've got 4 rooms that you're all going to be put into, and if you are available to talk, you can talk, but it might just be that you just continue on the chat box. It just means that there's a bit more interaction between you, because there'll be fewer of you in the group. But what we want you to think about is, what support would you find useful going forward? Would another webinar session be useful? What would you want us to focus on in that session? And are there any other resources? Sorry, we have corrected that spelling. It's reverted to an incorrect spelling, so apologies. We do know how to spell there. Are there any other resources you want to share or questions you would like answered? Obviously, we can't answer any questions that relate directly to kind of 2021 examinations. But please do put them in. So I'm going to hand over to our event support JP, and he's going to put us into the chat rooms. I hope you found that useful. The group that I was in was certainly very useful. So I'm going to give some feedback from my group on what was discussed in our breakout chat, and then I will hand over to the other facilitators, if that's okay. So those of you out there that are Edexcel A teachers, you would like some flashcards, the same as Edexcel B have, so we will feed that back. And I know some of you have asked for practice exam question booklets as well. We did talk about quite a few resources that perhaps hadn't been mentioned earlier, or if they had, I hadn't noticed it in the chat. And we talked about Internet Geography, Seneca and Schoology. Lots of you have said that you would like another one of these sessions, but perhaps once we have maybe some more information about the 2021 exams and expectations. And we were also asked if maybe something similar could be done like this for A level as well. And just to let you know, it was on the slide. I don't think I referred to it, but Pearson free resources. So the textbooks that Pearson produce are free, and I actually think that if you have a look, most publishers for GCSE Geography are offering their books free to access at the moment. So if you haven't done that yet, do kind of contact us here at Pearson, or do contact your publisher, because I think most publishers are offering that free. So can I hand over to Rebecca, please?
Okay, so I think I've got my mic on. Is that working? Great. So we talked a lot about some schools are really concerned about fieldwork, and obviously they would go out and do fieldwork now, and just what would happen about this one. So we will obviously, that will be fed back also from Edexcel. Other things we talked about was people would like to see some more things about exam technique. I reminded everyone that you can see the past training events where we have looked at exam technique. They're all available on the website. And also people were talking about past paper questions and looking at examiner feedback on them. And also just to remember on for 2018 and 2019, there is for every exam question a little pack, and in there the examiner mark, it gives you a 0, a half marks and a full mark question. So maybe we could get those sent around later for people to have a look at again. People would like some more webinars focusing maybe on how we could do like online revision and how we could encourage students to do revision online, and also how we could maybe look at doing online exam techniques. And a lot of people have asked for, if the 2020 papers aren't going to be released, can the 2019 papers remain locked, because we all use them for mocks in school, and that would be quite good for us to continue to use those, so if they could stay locked. So I think they're the main things that we fed back, Victoria.
That's great. Thank you. And sorry, can we hear from Emma, please?
Sure, this feels like a bit like the Eurovision Song Contest, doesn't it? I feel like I'm going to give my no dues poems to someone. So actually, we had very similar feedback. Really, we was there was again some sort of everyone saying it would be nice to have another webinar, but perhaps when we know a little bit more, and there could be a little bit more information to be given, and also the fact that it would be nice to have an A-level webinar as well, so we can certainly feed that back. One of the things we did talk about was perhaps some support around the math skills elements. So thinking about that sort of element of the course, and how we might be able to support that a little bit more for students, particularly ones who are working at home and sort of perhaps not having live lessons, so to speak. I think. And there was things around, yes, exam preparation, so all of the things that have been covered so far. We did talk about the Active Learn being available, but I know some in my group were having difficulty accessing it and actually getting any help from the technical support people. So that might be something that Victoria and I can look into at another date and make sure that that all of these issues are being sought out and are trying to be solved. I think we were talking about the fact that there's some of the OUP Key Stage 3 books are available as well, so they can be accessed. So it was very similar stuff really, and thinking ahead and how we might be able to help going forward really.
Great. I'm just going to take a question that's come up. So obviously at the moment it's not quite clear how Ofqual and therefore Pearson are going to take in your grades, but at some point after the 29th of May, so you're not going to be asked for your grades or your ranking before the 29th of May. Okay, and obviously that will come out and we'll tell you exactly how to do it and things like that. But essentially what you need to do is to look at your students and award them a grade. Okay, so you might have some students that you definitely think would get a 9, some students that you definitely think they would get a 7. Within that band, so within that grade, you need to rank your students. So I would imagine that most of you will do that on some kind of Excel spreadsheet. So just let you know that so far that's all you need to think about within your centre. So just think about what grades do you think your students will get. Look at all the evidence that you have. You are professionals, kind of use your professional judgment, work with others in your department. And essentially you will have all your Year 9 students ranked, all your Year 8 students ranked, all your Year 7 students ranked. So I know there was a bit of people were slightly unsure, but if you can just have that at the moment, give that to your head of centre, and we will work with your exams officers about how that will be collected in and uploaded. Sam, you're the last group. Have you got anything to add?
Hi, I think mostly, yeah, we covered like you just mentioned, the rank ordering kind of came up quite a lot, and there was just some sort of some questions about the tolerance as well relating to that. That was kind of the majority, and that it's a bit difficult to know what support the team will need, the groups will need, where we've not got that feedback yet from Ofqual, and they won't really know what's going on with like the Year 10s in 2021 yet. So it's a bit difficult to kind of put a finger on exactly the support that they need.
Yeah. So if you have got any concerns about anything that we've discussed today, you can get in touch with me. You can give me a ring on that number. When I can, I am actually going on the phone, so I am, as much as possible, trying to be on the phone so that you can get through to us a little bit more quickly. But you can, if you go to that support link, you can just email your query. So if there is anything, if you're still not through, if you've registered and you still haven't managed to access the digital resources or anything like that, please do just drop me an email through that link and I will follow it up. Okay. And I just want to say really thank you especially to Rebecca, who's helped me out, but also to Emma and Sam and JP who've all helped behind the scenes. But most of all, I'd say thank you to you. I know I've said this to my group, but it is a very difficult time at the moment. We know how hard you are working. You are all professionals, and we know you're doing an absolutely brilliant job in these really challenging circumstances. So we just do want to say thank you. And if you can fill in this survey and give us any feedback, let us know what you want us to do differently, let us know what you want us to do for you, then please do let us know. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. You've saved 8 minutes, so go and do kind of have some free time. And just thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you very much for sharing all those great resources that you found. It's really great that the geography community are working together, so thank you very much. Thanks a lot.